Hey there, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel where I've been talking a lot recently about all of the awesome new, lighter, more budget-friendly adventure bikes that we're starting to see from a wide variety of manufacturers, like the near 430-pound CF Moto IBEX450 that'll run you just under $6,500, or the brand new 2025 KTM 390 Adventure R that weighs just shy of 400 pounds and will cost you just a little bit less than $7,000. And as excited as I am to see all of these new sort of entry-level options, much like the XR, the DR, and the KLRs that I've owned, I don't really think any of these bikes are going to be great beginner bikes. Stick around and I'll tell you why. So I'm not a motorcycle instructor or a professional rider or anything like that. I do have about 10 years of dual sport and adventure riding under my belt, and I rode street bikes a bit before then. So this is just going to be coming from sort of my own personal experience, and I've definitely made some mistakes that now looking back, I would certainly change, and I think if I would have done things differently, I would have been able to progress a lot faster as a rider. I think a lot of people are looking at these bikes thinking that they're going to be good entry-level or beginner bikes because of the cost, because, well, they're kind of cool looking, and if you're somebody that's looking to get into on and off-road riding, they seem like a really good option. However, I think you'll see after I explain some of my experiences that they're really just not going to be the best at letting you sort of progress in the off-road space. Of course, everybody's a little bit different, everybody's sized a little bit different, so just because a bike didn't necessarily work for me doesn't mean that it's not going to work for you, but I think you can kind of apply the same principles to both your size as well as whatever bike that you're looking at. And I would also love to have any of you guys who are willing to share your experiences, either do's or don'ts, as far as a first kind of on off-road motorcycle down in the comments section. So my first dual sport, the DRZ400, I didn't really put a whole lot of off-road miles on. Partially that was because it didn't really fit my needs as far as getting me to my trails. So again, that's sort of the on-road side of things and not really anything that this video is specifically about. I've got plenty of videos about why I went to a KLR. And when I did go to the KLR, I essentially purchased it thinking it's going to be decently capable off-road. It shouldn't maybe be in a lot of the nastier trails, but I figured I could figure it out. I'd ridden four-wheelers for a long time and decided that it seemed like it was worth the added fuel range and the added wind protection over any of the lighter options. And if you guys are unfamiliar, a Gen 2 KLR650 is somewhere around 430 pounds and has a seat height of 33-ish inches or so. And I'm about 5'10", and I weigh about 150 pounds. And that, mixed with my inseam height of somewhere around 31 inches, really made the KLR650 kind of nerve-wracking to ride on anything other than, well, basically just a gravel road. Anytime that I would get anywhere where the ground was uneven and I might possibly have to put a foot down to sort of steady myself because of my sheer lack of off-road skills and abilities at that time, it really made me pretty uncomfortable, and honestly, he's really kind of unsafe. I mean, that's a pretty heavy bike to try to do really anything on off-road, especially if you don't have the skills to back it up. And I'm certainly not saying that if you're somebody that has a larger inseam and weighs a bit more, that you wouldn't be able to sort of figure out and navigate on a bike like that. Because of your size, you may very well need a larger motorcycle. I think something like a DR650 or an XR650 would probably still be better. The XR only weighs around 346 pounds, but has a 37-inch seat height, and the DR weighs somewhere around 366 and has a 35-inch-ish seat height. But what I ended up doing after realizing that I just was not enjoying the off-road riding that I was doing on the KLR, I found basically what I thought would be a much easier bike to sort of cut my teeth on and to learn on. And there were a couple things that I was looking for. One was a lower seat height, and two was just a lighter bike in general, something that would, I figured, be a little bit easier to handle. And I was totally right about both of those things. I purchased I think it was a 1987 Honda XL250R, which was vastly different from the KLR650. If any of you guys were watching back then, you probably heard me joke about how pushing that bike around in the garage, not even being on it, felt like pushing around a bicycle. And of course, being off-road, in turn, then it also made it feel like I was just riding a bicycle through the woods rather than a giant 430-pound monster that always felt like it wanted to tackle me. And I know a lot of us can maybe get in that mindset that this is the bike we want, so this is where we're going to start out on, regardless of whether it's going to be a hard transition and a hard learning curve or not. We just want to do that. And of course, everybody is going to make their own decision. However, I can tell you for certain that I learned much quicker, even on the KLR, just being able to ride the XL250R sort of in tandem with it. It just made things so much more clear. It made figuring out what I needed to do and where I needed to be on the bike to get it to do what I needed it to do and to get through whatever it was that I was trying to get through. It just totally changed the way that I rode bikes and even just the way that I approached off-road riding in general. And I know, again, a lot of us probably want to be able to get on one of these bikes and just go ripping down the trail as fast as we can and get ahead of our buddies. But the thing is, a lot of times when I would have problems on the KLR, it really wasn't when I was moving fast. And that's the thing about a big bike, is if you can keep it moving, just the fact that the tires are spinning around kind of makes that bike sort of want to stand up. And of course, you can run into some issues and end up on your side or in the trees pretty quickly. But at the same time, it's much harder to ride, I think, a big bike slow than it is fast, of course, depending on the conditions. And as things get rough, when you feel the need to start to slow down, that's when, again, you're going to get yourself in trouble, maybe not knowing exactly how to get your foot to the ground quickly in order to save yourself and possibly save the bike from tipping into something. And riding that little 250 slow really, again, just sort of made me figure that out a lot quicker. And I really do feel like it made me progress a lot faster on the KLR. So at the very least, I think what I would suggest, if any of you guys are looking at these new sort of entry-level adventure bikes, or even a KLR, a DR, or an XR, and while I know, of course, not everybody can do this, the best thing to do if you want to progress off-road or be a better off-road rider, I think the best thing to do is to buy one of those and then also buy something cheap that has a low seat height, a low center of gravity, and weighs less than 300 pounds. And of course, seat height and maybe even weight can sort of, again, depend on your size, but I think having a seat height 32 inches or lower, I think, is just going to be what's best. And bikes like the XT250 from Yamaha, the TW200, those are going to be good options. The CRF300 Rally, that, whatever it is, 34-inch-ish seat height, I think it's going to be a little bit too much if you're somebody my size. If you're a little bit bigger, maybe that bike would be totally fine, maybe even perfect for a lot of you guys out there. And I think in that sense, if you are somebody that has a larger, taller build, that might be the very best sort of entry-level adventure dual sport type bike. But otherwise, I really think you should be on something that doesn't have so much horsepower that you're going to get yourself into trouble, like my 701 Enduro. And really, even that bike at somewhere around 340 pounds, it's not super heavy like the KLR. It's not even as heavy as the DR650. It just doesn't give me that same sort of easygoing feeling or forgiving feeling that bikes like my XL250R did. Just having that nice lightweight sort of easygoing feeling, I think, would really be helpful for a lot of you guys out there. And again, I'm not saying you can't do it on any other bike. I just think, looking back, if I was to do it all over again, I definitely would have got that 250 or a 250 first, even if it was alongside the KLR. I think that's just the best way to go. I think it's the safest. I think it's going to help you progress the quickest and get to be where you need to be to ride a big bike off-road. And of course, there's still going to be a learning curve there, even, just moving from a lighter bike to a heavier one or a heavier and taller one. There are certainly going to be some changes, but I think once you've had some time and sort of learned some off-road skills on a lighter bike, it's going to be much easier to transfer those to one of these bigger, slightly heavier, possibly taller, and maybe even quite a bit more powerful bikes. And while, of course, I would still caution you guys moving to anything that has more power, I think once you have some experience on a smaller, slower, easier going bike, I think it's just going to make your experience with a larger bike much, much better. And you won't end up in a situation like I was, where I had this giant bike that I really wanted to know how to ride, but just didn't ever feel comfortable practicing any maneuvers off-road because, again, I just didn't really know how to do any of them to begin with, and anything I tried, the bike just seemed way too big for. So hopefully that experience helps you guys. Again, if you guys have any sort of input or your own experiences that you'd want to share, I'd love to hear them down in the comments. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care, stay safe, stay swanky, get out there and enjoy this beautiful world. Any chance you get, just maybe do it on a bike that hopefully you can be a little bit safer and learn a little bit quicker on. We'll catch you guys on the next one.